Welcome to our Thursday second hour. In our second hour today, we're going to be talking about what's going to be happening with a special show that Alex is kind of mounting here. We're going to be moving our time slot a little bit. We're kind of getting ready for more shows and more kinds of things. And in this case, rather than doing it in the morning, which we've been doing for the last 4 years plus, we're talking about a later in the day show, really kind of offset by 12 hours. This should give us more reach to people all around the globe, as office hours global implies. This is a global phenomenon. And for a lot of our audience, they obviously don't have the option to come in because of work or something else at the time that we're on. So I think Alex has been talking about maybe a 12-hour offset and a different kind of show. One of the considerations for that is we might be moving to some of the production platform, and we've been talking about Viz Vector as a way to do that. So, Alex, do you want to give us a little hint as to what kind of what's happening with this?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that you'll see us doing is that we're taking on different shows using different platforms to understand how those platforms work. So we, spent a couple years just doing Zoom, and then we've spent the last 3 years doing this incredible piece of hardware that the dev team has built out. And we're starting to think about what the next version of this is, and we strongly think that the cloud has got a big piece of what we're going to do in the future. But what we want to do is do this as transparently as we can, and we want to talk about these things and just give you updates as we go. So this is really an update show. I don't even know if it'll go a whole hour, but we have John here from Viz, as well as Jeff, who's a vector and TriCaster expert. So this is an opportunity for us to give you a little overview of what we're doing, but it's also an opportunity for you to ask any questions that you may have about Viz. So if you've got questions about Vector specifically and things, and why are we using it and how are we using it and everything else, go ahead and how it works and what can it do and what can it do. This is just a great opportunity for you to ask those questions as well. So go ahead and throw those questions into Makana, or you can throw them in. We sometimes have trouble looking at the QR code during the show, but during the second hour, but we'll give it a shot. So we'll try to keep our eyes out. So if you're just simply watching that, you can go to ask. Oops, that's the wrong one. Askofficehours.global. What we're doing is we're creating a different show in the evening. So we were already talking about creating the show in the evening, and we thought this is just a perfect place as a little test bed for us to start to really understand how Viz Vector works. And so this show is going to be it's going to be hosted by Grant Whitehead. So he's going to be Grant is going to be hosting the show. I'll be on the show. There'll be 6 people on the show. I think we're going to end up growing it to 8. I think we're going to probably grow it to 8 people, but we're going to try 6 at first. It's going to be a little different in format, at least at the beginning, where it's not going to have quite the raise your hand kind of thing. It's just going to be kind of us just talking, so back and forth, and we're going to see how that goes. But one of the big things is we decided it's got to be all in the cloud. So we looked at a bunch of different cloud options. We think that Vector is the best cloud option that we had in front of us, and so we've been going through the process over the last couple of weeks, and we've had just a lot of great input. I want to thank Jeff specifically, and Jonas, and many of the others that have jumped in and helped us. Obviously, we've had some help from Viz as well, as far as getting, figuring out, how to get it all together, because it's not something we've done in the past. So everything that I've worked on has really been hardware. Like, I'm a hardware person. So this is a huge jump forward in that area. So the way we have this set up right now is that we have built this in AWS, and we've got a couple different things going on there. So we've got, if you think about the way that this is set up, we've got Vector, and then we have an EIC machine that's managing. So we've got Vector that we're running on an instance. We have another machine that's managing NDI Bridge, and managing a couple of the other bits and pieces. And Jeff, you can correct me if I'm giving any kind of incorrect information there, but these are my understanding of it. And then we have Zoom rooms, and these Zoom rooms are there are Zoom rooms that are delivering. Right now, it's a Zoom room, but we could do a couple Zoom rooms if we want. We were kind of ready to do that if we need to. That are delivering via NDI. They're delivering we're delivering the video and audio from Zoom into Vector. And I will say that one of the things that held us up a little bit is I was thinking, I have to have some kind of mixing platform, because I was thinking Vector is really all video. But as we started to get into it, we realized that. So there's a couple things we learned was that a couple things we've learned so far is, number one is we should overbuild our instances. The difference is 25 cents an hour for something that doesn't work. For 25 cents more an hour, we can get something that really works. And so it's, if you're going to run it all day, it might add up. But for what we're doing, we were kind of like, we should just get bigger instances. So learning to do that ahead of time as well. So as we started to get spec'd up in AWS, one of the challenges we had was that, some of the instances that we can get take time to. You can't just say, I want. And again, this is just for people watching, and it was new to me as well because I haven't needed a lot of these bigger instances in the past. I've used a lot of AWS services. I haven't used a lot of compute resources in the same way. So you have to schedule these things sometimes a day or two in advance to get through to make those requests of some of these. And so you have to say, I'm going to want to use these these various I want to be able to get these resources, but you can't just do it and have it ready 10 minutes later. So one thing that we learned is you got to start asking for those resources ahead of time. So it's just a little bit of pre-planning. Once you've asked for them and once they've been allocated to you, you can use them anytime you want. So it's just a matter of as you get off the ground, and I'll let Jeff talk about what the specific instances that we're using are. So one thing we learned was get ahead of that. Once we got it up, I think one thing that I was surprised at is just how easy it is. I mean, it's just a TriCaster like in the cloud. So once it's up, it's like, oh, okay, it's just working. We're coming up to speed on that process, but it is. But basically, we had to get that working. There is a lot of getting the Zoom rooms kind of working and delivering pieces where, for instance, yesterday we were working on it and the resolution was low. It's because the instance wasn't big enough. So as soon as the instance was increased, we were able to kind of make that work. So, and so basically what you're going to see is what you're going to see on Monday, and I'll hand this off to Jeff after this, and then we'll open up to your questions because the questions are stacking up actually really, really quickly. What you're going to see is a hello world for us. So there's going to be a 6-up. There's going to be the ability to go to singles. We'll have an open slate and a closed slate, and we're just trying to make sure that we were like putting a peg in the sand. It just says we're going to do a show. So it's going to be very basic. And then what you're going to see is we're going to take the week of the 4th off, but the week after that, you're going to see us start adding 1 or 2 features a week. So we'll just keep on doing this every week, and 1 or 2 little things are going to get added until we build it into a show that we're really, that looks like many of the other shows that we do. We're also looking at, one of the things I'm excited about is that Vector really has a very extensive SDK, an API that we can use that we can basically, we're looking at how we take the automation that we use for this show and be able to wire it. And I think that the connection that we have with Vector will actually be more direct than the connection we have with the BlackMagic hardware that we're using right now. So because it has all the hooks that we would need to do that. So we're pretty excited about where that can go, potentially even using all the same, the Isadora and everything else that's there, but being able to do it. We're also going to be experimenting with, there's a dashboard that we can use to control it, and that we're going to be building out too. So you're going to see us and what we'll do is about every month or two, as we progress this, we're just going to show you a new, this is where we are and this is what we learned. So this is the first time we're doing it. Hey, we're actually going to do a show with it. And, and we're just going to give you what it took us to get to here. And then a month or two, between 4 to 8 weeks later, we're going to come back to and do another one of these shows and say, okay, look at the show now. And here's you can see the show on YouTube. You can see those bits and pieces, and this is what we're doing, and this is how it works, and answer more of your questions. But I think that, I'm pretty excited about where I'm pretty excited about the direction. I think that Vector is a really, really interesting, really good solution for what we're doing, and maybe the solution for what we're doing somewhere in the future. Go ahead, Jeff.
Jeff Keithley, you want to sing?
Sorry, Bill. I wanted
That's
to
okay.
Mode.
You're in mode. I get it. Totally. Don't worry about it. Jeff Keithley, dive in.
I'm just sitting back and I'm loving being part of this this venture.
Jeff finally gets to say, "I told you so." Like he's just like, "I see."
For so long,
finally.
How many months, years?
Okay, I got to say it finally. I've been keeping my mouth shut, but yeah, I really enjoyed it because it's great seeing people learn what I've been using for almost a decade more now, and I really enjoy seeing people, like, oh, it doesn't have to be just this way that hardware makes you think. So it is going to take a little bit for the TDs to get their heads around, just like anything, learning something new. But I believe that the capabilities are there to take us forward and allow us to grow the show. Any of the shows that are involved in office hours, I feel like that this is a great platform that will allow us to really grow forward while still keeping some of the same infrastructure. It's like Zoom meetings and Zoom rooms, being able to use their bandwidth and their backhaul capabilities of doing the contributors. That it's a great solution. It's a fantastic solution. So it doesn't need to be reinvented. We don't have to go all the way down to SRT latency issues and things like that we have to fight to have this kind of one-on-one conversation. So I feel like it's a great start, and I'm excited to be part of it.
And here's the Jonas popped up with here are the EC2 instances that we're using. This is we're doing a G4DN X4X large for Viz, a G4DN 4X large for Zoom Rooms, a G4DN X large for EIC, that's for management, a T3 dot small for licensing and a Disco server, a T3 dot medium for the for VPN access of the team and Cloudflare tunnels to remote access of the live panel. So those are the pieces that are built up. And I will say that one of the things that's made this possible is the fact that we have a great team. Jonas and Jeff and the Viz team and Andy Carluccio at Zoom have all been helping. We're all kind of talking about it, and we've gotten it up to speed. And if you're interested in being part of the Viz team, just let us know. You can reach out to me. You can reach out to Josh. We have a forum that we're talking about it, and we are gonna. One of the things we want to do is give people, once we get this off the ground, we want to give people the opportunity to run the show. We're keeping it. We're gonna keep that show pretty simple so that you can get on, and it's not like, oh, can I just. The problem with a lot of this stuff is you see Viz Vector and you want to kick the tires. But it's really hard to do that without something live going on, right? And so what we're going to do is we're going to have a show, and if you're interested in cutting a show on Viz Vector as we get going, and as we do more tests and so on and so forth, there's going to be live people having a conversation, streaming to YouTube, and you're going to be able to TD that, and be part of that. So do let us know about, definitely sign up for it, because I think it's going to be exciting. Again, we want to make sure that a lot of people know how to do it for a variety of reasons. so it's important for us to train up a lot of people to use it. So I think it's going to be great.
Should we dive right into the questions, or do you want to bring John in to say hi, or what do you feel like?
I think John, did you have anything to add to what we were saying there? John's here from Viz. John Riddle is
hey guys.
Here from Viz. Hey.
Yeah, no, it's been great to work with you guys. I'm really excited. It's always good to see people branching out, using new technology, or working into a software world with video processing, and now you guys taking the step into cloud. This is the way the business of the industry is moving, and it's really exciting to just be a part on the ground floor of watching you guys learn and get through it. That's the enjoyment that I have, because my piece in Viz is to do just that with all of the customers, broadcasters, and clients alike. So it's been really great back and forth, and I look forward to reflecting in 6 months and a year from now the journey that you guys have gone and see the growth of the show.
As Alex mentioned, we have a lot of questions stacking up, so you want to dive into some of those?
Let's do it.
Alexander?
First question's from Jonas Dautel in Stuttgart. What control interfaces is Office Hours looking to use for Viz?
And Jeff raises his hand first, so Jeff Keithley.
Well, anytime that I'm going to switch on the show, it's going to be on this guy. I keep this near my desk just in case. And I I'm a hardware person. I know we've had some conversations about, you could use a Stream Deck. Yes, you could use actually a fairly large amount of different options, especially if we were going to tie it in with central control that allows us to use any of the older surfaces. And I have some older TriCaster surfaces too, just sitting around from all the different versions I've had. So, but this is the 2-stripe, and that's my go-to right now. I'm still waiting on my Flex, which is the newest version, and John is promised me that I'll have that like tomorrow or something like that. I believe maybe it was. The Flex is amazing. It's the newest version of what I have right here, and it talks. It's very interesting as it talks over NDI. So it sends its control messages over NDI. This unit is an IP-based unit, but I have to forward messages, and it's a little more work to get the 2-stripe working. But with the newer 1-stripe Flex and then the new 2-stripe Flex, it works over NDI. So we use a NDI bridge, as Alex mentioned. We have the EIC machine that can run NDI bridge, and I run NDI bridge here, and then it uses NDI as a control method to send the commands back and forth between the control surface and the instance. And it honestly, it works really, really, really well. I had my doubts at first. And then there's also some other goodies that come with the Flex, like audio out for monitoring purposes and things like that. So there's a lot of capabilities. I do understand that there are some reasons to have a simpler interface. And so we've been talking about doing that and creating more of with Live Panel, which is part included with Vector. You could build a touchscreen interface with just what you need. So if you wanted to have selection for 6 cameras, plus a gallery look or a multi-box look, and then you wanted to have graphics on or off and take auto. I mean, that's all you would need for a simple solution. Well, then you could build that specifically out and just assign it to specific touchpads on a touchscreen. So there's a lot of different ways to do control, but my first is absolutely hardware.
Alex, you want to get in?
And this is where there's this odd switch between Jeff and I. so Jeff is like, we can do this all in the cloud and with software, and I'm like, oh, I like hardware. But when we get to the interface, I've become because of MimoLove, because we're basically, it's a little bit of backup. We're going to keep on doing different shows, and they're all going to have slightly different formats, and they're all going to have slightly different software and hardware and everything else. It's so that we can answer these questions more effectively, so MimoLove is used for the firesides that I use. We're going to use Ecamm for something else. We're using Vector here for these evening shows. But one of the things that I really love is the live panel, and the reason for that is that a lot of these shows are not that complex. The show that you're watching right now is actually someone's cutting it. Today, Michael Smith is cutting this show on a touch. I don't know if he's on a touch screen, but he's on a web page that he's clicking on to make this happen. He doesn't have any hardware. And what that does is it means that it's very portable as we design these looks and we design this process. The idea is, as the engineers, we figure out what it needs to do, and then we expose the interface to a creative person that doesn't have to think about those things. Only thinks about what they want it to do, not how to actually get it done. I don't have to put these 3 buttons and hit this macro and do it. Just push the button and it'll work. And it's not that the person can't be technical. It's that we want them to be present. We want them to be in the show, doing the things that they want to do. My goal is eventually to be able to have people it'll look funny when they're in their living room, in their pajamas doing this, but ready camera 1, go camera 1, ready camera 2. And I want that to be what how they're cutting the show. Like, it's just sitting there calling the show out verbally, and it's just doing the thing. And Ross has shown a little bit of that already. But I think that with large language models, that's not going to be too far away. So, but the goal right now for us is the live. I think Jeff is going to use hardware. I am going to use software for that in a touch screen.
Let the battle commence.
How does this happen? I think we might be reaching a singularity.
We did
here.
A full Win 80, right?
yeah, exactly. But the touch screen, I think, is a really powerful thought process of being able to constantly design the interface so that it calls to the action.
John Radel, you want to get into this?
Yeah. First, I want to say that with Alex's comments, it's very, in my experiences, the idea that you guys are taking the engineering and setup and then just giving an interface to the operators for them to be present Very European outlook for you, because that's one thing that
I'll take that as a compliment.
it's a strange thing for myself as a technical director in the U.S. because the technical director has all the buttons, all the orchestration. They have every little dial they want to build their show and their needs in front of them. They're not given just here's 7 buttons, only hit these and just be present during the show.
But one thing I want to say about the really good point though, it's what's interesting is that if you go to if you do any show that is done over and over and over again, that is a discussion. If you look at like a network TV, or not network TV, but local TV, they're not even seeing that. They're just hitting the space bar, and all those, and everything's moving around from segment to segment to segment. So what we're trying to do is get to a point where, hey, we're doing the same thing over and over again. Let's just make sure that you have the tools that you have, and it's different than football. It's different than sports. It's different than, I think to some degree. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. But it was just interesting what you were saying, and just something that I'm still learning and coming to terms with the European colleagues and customers that we have, because they have vision mixers, and the vision mixers are just really responsible for their box effects, and then the director is sitting there actually touching buttons, which is completely crazy to me from a US standpoint. The directors in the US would never do that, so it's different. But back to the other question, just control interfaces. As Jeff said, yes, hardware switchers, controllers to control the software, live panel as far as a touch interface. I think it needs to be said too, just, we interface with other things if you wanted to do like central control. If Stream Deck has its own TriCaster application that you can just create buttons directly on your Stream Deck to control the software. And then just from the SDK or API in general, you could just create your own full control layer yourself if you really wanted to. That API is publicly open and available for customers to create themselves.
And we absolutely within a year plan to have people sitting in the potential of having someone sitting in an Apple Vision Pro cutting the show on Vector, like we've already been discussing what that would look like.
Spatial TDs.
Yeah, exactly. Spatial TDs.
Courtney Gooden had a thought here.
Yeah, if we're not like Jeff and have $10,000 to drop on a Viz RT Flex, does it work? Is there a Scarhoy Airfly Pro desktop converter or something?
Yes.
A third of the price that can work.
Multiple Scarhoys will work with it, and all the way down to Stream Deck if you wanted to. The TIST is a MIDI controller available from China that it works really well with. TIST 1500, and it's only like a $400 or $500 controller. So there's a lot of different options.
We do have a lot of questions, so let's get to the next one. Alexander, wait a second. He's off temporarily, so let me just do this.
I'll step in here.
Oh, you were stepping in? Go ahead, Courtney.
Yes, Douglas Carmichael has a question. He says, Audiomovers has introduced OMNIBUS 3.0, which can route audio from any device or application over NDI. Could this be used to get audio in and out of Vector?
Jeff Keithley.
It could be used, absolutely. The challenge would be how much you would have to pay to use it. The cost of the software itself is not bad, but the cost of the Mac instance that you would have to run in AWS to be able to talk to Vector in AWS or GCP or wherever you happen to have it hosted, that cost is going to be substantial. So that's where there'd be the drawback of it. If you were on-prem, which Viz Vector can be used on-prem also, if you were on-prem and you had a Mac next door to you that you needed to run it on, yeah, absolutely. It's just another tool. But great feature set. I like a lot I see on it, but without it being virtualized or capable to be cost effectively virtualized, it's not going to have a lot of purpose for us.
Alex?
For the shows that we're doing, one of the things we got really clear of as we got set up is I really felt like we needed an external audio mixer, and I really feel like we can do most of what we're doing, maybe all of what we're doing inside of Vector. So I don't think that, we realize that most of the stuff can be done the way we're doing it. without anything extra, and that's really kind of sped things up. We are in discussions with some other folks that we could potentially put into the cloud to manage more complex audio chains, so we're looking at adding those as well. And when we do that, we'll talk about it and expose it to everybody here, and give some of you an opportunity to play with that as well. So stay tuned for that. But I do think that in our first round of shows, we're just going to use Vector's audio, which is very capable for what we're doing, and then we are going to, mostly as a thought process, add an external audio processor so that we understand how that works as well.
Alexander, next question.
Next question is from Andy Kokendorfer in Viera Flora. Is there failover with a Viz Vector instance?
Alex?
I was actually going to throw this to John. What is the failover process for Vector?
So when this question comes up, I need to start asking a couple questions. What do you mean by failover?
Well, so if we yeah, exactly. Like if AWS goes down, it's over. So like there's no failover to that.
North American grid goes out.
But no one's going to notice because they're going to be trying to get everything else to work. So I think that. But let's say what are the things that we could do? I mean, we don't have any failover at the moment, but let's just say as we grow this, we have thousands of people watching every time. We want to have, can we build a separate instance and control it and have it follow the instance that we have here?
Yeah. So first, my joke and what I do say is if US East 1 went down, or even a portion of it, your video production show is of little to no importance. Bigger things happening in the world.
Yeah.
The ICU in the hospital may come first.
There's banks, air traffic control. There's a lot of stuff that is much, much more important. Also, and the thing is there's very rare cases that a region or a data center for AWS actually just shuts down. It's more of I can't get into.
Right.
There's or the AZs. There's just no allocation, or you can't access the actual AZ. It's more of how I can't communicate with this AZ. It's not that someone just pulled the power. Those things are few and far between. As far as the software goes, and we've actually done quite a bit of testing and also implementation with customers. You could absolutely run a second instance of Vector. You can diversify it into a different AZ or a region. And with the API, you can absolutely get probably 98% of a take for take, a cut for cut, a source for source, or a button press to that backup system. And then you'd build out your infrastructure very much like the rest of the business does, with just a simple straight router. All possible today. Absolutely.
Great.
You have a follow-up, Alex, or you want to go to the next question?
I just said great. That's good.
Yeah. Okay. Next question.
From the QR code, Gene J. Anthony in Skokie, Illinois asks, for Viz Vector, we have an event that involves fire and volunteers. How well does the processing in Vector work with fire videos compared to MimoLove, VMix, or ATEMs? How easy is it for volunteers to use?
Fire, huh, Alex?
Well, there's two questions there, and I'll separate them out. Number one is that it's working pretty much the same. It's Rec 709, so it's fire is fire. So Rec 7, it's going to be how you expose it and how do you take that data and compress it into the 709 format. Of course, NDI is now supporting HDR. We hope that somewhere in the future Vector will support that as well. So there's possibilities of it doing a lot more somewhere in the future. But otherwise, it's going to do just the same as the other ones. They're now potentially the ATEM can do Rec 2020 now, the constellations, but outside of that, you would have they should all pretty much work the same way. It's how you expose it in the cameras and how it's brought into that 709 color space is what matters.
John Riedel, want to get in?
Yep. Just want to say that I am allowed to speak about it publicly now. At NAB, we did show.
I'll let you do that.
at NAB, if you did visit the VizRT booth, we did demo a full ground to cloud, back down to ground workflow of NDI6 HDR. It is 10-bit 422 Rec 2020. That does exist. It is absolutely in testing. It is absolutely being developed, and we look forward to finishing all of that out and making it available for use to the public.
Exciting. Let's go to the next question.
Anawahi Black Blair Marshall in Oahe from the QR code asks, does Viz Vector work with 2110? How easy is it to get 2110 into Vector, and is it compatible with BlackMagic's 2110 system for using their cameras or switchers and processors with Vector? Thank you.
Alex, Lindsay's going to help us.
I think it's kind of different worlds. I know we're really focused on NDI, both, for making that actually work. But I think that especially the BlackMagic's version of 2110 is probably not going to be something that you would necessarily use in this case because it's really designed to be on-prem. Like that's the BlackMagic thing. So it's not designed to necessarily go. And while it's compressed, it's still a lot of data. So I think that I don't think that it would necessarily make sense to try to cross that process.
John?
Yeah, I think that just the overwhelming question, just 2110 NDI, how they coexist and whatnot. The NDI team has been made it very known that this stuff is being worked on, but also with the SDK, vendors are able to make these conversion boxes, and I think that there's already a couple of them that have been announced on the market publicly that you can convert SDI. To NDI, 2110 to NDI, NDI back to the other formats. Those things exist. Does it make sense in cloud? Probably not because of bandwidth, but on-prem, absolutely.
Let's go to the next question.
Douglas Carmichael asks, why are we going to use Zoom Rooms instead of ZoomISO?
Jeff Keithley, you want to juggle this one?
ZoomISO is strictly running on just Mac OS moving forward. So that means a Mac instance, which, as I alluded to before, is expensive in AWS to maintain. A Mac instance, you could pay for a Mac Mini, and I think it was the last time I added it up in about 42 days. So if you're doing it a lot, it's going to cost you a lot. So it's just easier. And Zoom Rooms are absolutely just as stable and just as capable. We use them for productions all the time.
Next question.
From the QR code, Marielle Jusha Miera and Wablo asks, can you use Vector in the studio instead of having everything in the cloud?
John Riedel.
Yeah, at the end of the day, Vector is software, so it can be installed on-prem. In the same context, the software is what a TriCaster is, except for it removes the hardware, the hardware need of the video card that's created there in San Antonio. So as far as software goes, you can absolutely use it on-prem.
Jeff Keithley.
Absolutely. We do it all the time. I've got it running right now. So yeah.
Next question.
Jonas Dautel in Stuttgart asks, Alex, now that you've joined the dark arts of cloud production, what excites you the most?
Alex.
I've always assumed that we're going to go to the cloud, and I think I've said that for the last couple of years. Like, it's not like we're never going to go and do production in the cloud. It's just been one of those things that, to be honest, I was waiting for certain things to know that they were going to happen, which is the ability to do, atemOSC and Vision, eventually, or to do high, and that can be done with a PQ curve or an HDLG curve can be converted to Vision. And I wanted to know that we could get there. I didn't want to put my eggs into a basket that was never going to get there or was going to take years and years and years. So one of the big things that helped us kind of turn the corner is to really focus on this was knowing that NDI was going to a high dynamic range 10-bit, and knowing that was going to eventually move downstream, had me go, okay, well, now we can start to build. Even if it's not all there yet, we can start to build so that when it appears, we're ready to just shift over immediately to make that actually work. And so that was definitely something that kind of held me in hardware. I think that the power of doing this is that there's so many things that once we start going into the cloud that we can start to build. And a lot of it is we're already, I mean, the cloud is just somebody else's hardware, and we're already kind of working in the cloud now. Michael Smith is somewhere in the world. Other people are, we're coming in from all over the world. So we're already doing that. It's just the cloud has been very graciously provided by John Wallace to make sure that it's his cloud. It's the Wallace cloud. Anyway, so to make that possible. And so I think that, and we continue to expect this to be running the main show for quite some time. This is going to take time for us this evening show is going to let us figure out how to use this, we have an incredible amount of automation. But I think that as we grow this, the ability for one thing to scale, to build bigger, much larger shows. If you look at some of the stuff that Jeff's worked on with shows that have 30,000 or 50,000 people and being able to break that up, you can't do that on the ground. So there's places that we're going to be able to take this that we just simply can't take it. I think that the ability to have really seamless backups that are very geographically diverse. So we talked about that a little bit, but the ability to have multiple instances happening in different parts of the country or different parts of the world, I think is really interesting. I do think that one of the things that I really like about Vector is this very the extensibility of the architecture, that we can tie into a lot of these things and automate them, because I think that we're looking at a place where we continue to allow operators to be creatively deciding what the show looks like, but we also want to get to a point where an operator could have to take a break for 10 minutes and just put it on autopilot and have it run the show for a little bit when it's in a simple part of the show. It's kind of like for those of us who are DJs, it's the long, the 7-minute Mission UK song or something you put on if you need a little break. Being able to have it just sit there and do the show for you for a little while. And I think that we're going to be able to, I think we could do that in hardware. I think it's going to be easier to do it in Vector, and in a lot of software, different pieces. And so I think that the cloud is a solution. We're going to keep on working on all of these different solutions, as we go down the path. So, it's going to be some on-prem, some in the cloud, but I think that Vector is going to give us a lot of options to continue to, again, we're so seamlessly used to a global production pipeline that this is not going to be that big of a deal. And it just simply empowers our community to be able to even more fluidly, build shows and expand it. And of course, our goal somewhere in the future is to be doing shows like this one 24/7. And maybe even multiple channels of those. And we can't, it's going to be really hard to support that and scale up to that on the ground. So to do what we're trying to do, I don't actually think it's possible to do it on the ground. And so as we get ready for that kind of expansion, we want to start figuring out how to meet that demand a year and a half from now with a very, very extensible cloud infrastructure that does all the things our current show does, but in AWS.
Next question.
Next question's from the QR code. We have Anawahi Black Bear Marshall in Oahe asking, what cloud is best for Viz Vector? How well can it work when crossing data streams from one cloud service to another, like AWS or Azure or Google or Mac Stadium or still PC?
John Radel.
I'm sorry.
Yep. So Vector, at the end of the day, is software running on a Windows machine. We've run it with customers in AWS, Azure, and Google, not Mac Stadium. All of those ISVs work perfectly fine as far as transferring data streams across from one cloud service to the other. That becomes just simply networking. It doesn't really have anything to do with our software. And that's where you get your solution architects involved in that kind of conversation. And then you can also run it in a private cloud. So if you wanted to build your own server and run VMware, and also I can't think of it off the top of my head right now, the name of it, but the Cisco server, you can run private cloud as well.
Jeff Keithley.
All right. We're actually doing that, John. Mine's running in a VM right now, so our own private cloud, more or less, on our own hardware that's here hosted across our data center. One thing, keep in mind, this is a PC software. So if you're asking if it will work at Mac Stadium, no, because there's no PCs there. It's Macs. Then the other is if you're trying to cross streams or go between providers or different cloud providers, you're going to get into a very, very costly solution at that point. Ingest into just about any cloud provider out there, ingest is free. But egress, sending those streams out, can definitely cost you a very large pocket hit. And that means that you're sending full stream, full bandwidth NDI sources out. It could be very costly. So those are just things that, talking to a solution architect, someone that does this like we do all the time, it's definitely, before you go down this path, have a conversation, because there's a lot of gotchas that you have to kind of keep in mind. It's just not the per hour charge. There's a lot of other little pieces that have to come to play.
Courtney?
Yeah, what are the hardware requirements for that host PC if you're going to build your own private cloud there? Does it have to have an NVIDIA card, or what are the requirements of that PC?
Yes, it does need a NVIDIA card. It's built specifically for that hardware, or a variation of it. Yeah, it doesn't have to be like an RTX 40 whatever. It does need to be an NVIDIA card, though, because the CUDA cores are being used extensively in the encoding and the drawing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Alex?
Jonas pointed out also that one of the great things with the cloud, and what we saw yesterday, is when you have a hardware issue or need better hardware, it takes about 2 to 4 minutes to swap out the underlying hardware, which is what we did yesterday. So we were testing it. We put a bunch of people into it to make sure that it was going to get. We put 6 people in, and we're getting low resolution. We kept on getting low resolution, and we realized, the instance isn't big enough. And I asked Jonas, I was like, I thought maybe we'll have to come back tomorrow. I was like, so how long is it going to take for us to move this over to it? And he's like, 2 or 3 minutes. And in German, full German fashion, it was 2 or 3 minutes. And he was like, okay, I need to host again. And boom, we're back up again. And then we are all in 1080p. So it's like, you're not buying a bunch of hardware. This is the nice thing about it, is you design something and, it's instead of $1.25 an hour, it's $1.50 an hour instead of $1 an hour. I mean, it's like 25 cents more an hour, which, again, if we ran the show, Jonas did the math on this. If we ran the show the way we have it set up, ran this show that we're doing right now, the way we set it up yesterday, if we did it every day for this show, it costs us about $500 and some a month, to run it. We're only doing it once a week right now, so it'll be a very minor amount of money, for us to run this in AWS. So I think that there's a lot of, it's potentially a really good solution there. And there was something else that Jeff had talked about that I was going to say, but I can't remember now.
Let's go to the next question.
Next question is from Ryan Thomason in Houston, Texas, asking, do you have any diagrams that you can share?
We're going to share more of them. I think it's still a little bit of a work in progress as we move these around. And I meant to have diagrams today. And to be honest, I just have my production is a little crazy this week. So the next time we do the update, we will absolutely put up diagrams and show you screenshots and diagrams, and like, this is what we've been doing for a couple weeks now. And I think that's going to be more valuable when we're there to show you what we're doing. So I think that, so stay tuned for that, but we'll definitely publish all those things. We definitely found that there's a huge value for us, for as many people in our group, to understand how this works. So we are going to publish and try to explain everything that we're doing so that we have more resources within our group to rely on to do this. So definitely stay tuned for more information.
Next question.
Douglas Carmichael asks, when I participated in Belfast Method events as a TD, I used atemOSC and Isadora to control accidentals ATEM directly. Would there be any way to send OSC, MIDI, or other data over the internet to Vector to control it from any control surface?
John Riddle.
Oh, sorry. I keep on doing that.
Quick answer is yes. If you do want to send OSC and MIDI into cloud, I could probably say, and Jeff could contest with me as well, that there's probably some better ways to get the same type of experience that you're looking for, or sending those button presses and having that control. But in the short, yes.
Jeff Keithley.
Yeah, we do this all the time. It's a MIDI control surface, or OSC on a tablet is how we used to do it when we were building control surfaces before. Touchscreen control surfaces is why I have an opinion about these, Alex. Is touchscreen control surfaces I've been trying to do for a long time because I thought it was really cool. And as I build out exactly what I need using Touch OSC, and then I send OSC commands through a MIDI, and then I flip MIDI back into commands into the TriCasters way back when, and eventually we've done that to the Vector also. our easiest way of doing this now is we use a middleware software called Central Control, and Central Control just does it all. It talks directly to the TCP port currently that is open on the Vector, and or behind the VPN that we're happily connecting with, which is security is something we're concerned about. So we're going to have a VPN layer set in that only those that have that access on the VPN will be able to touch the controller itself.
Alex?
And we plan to use Live Panel to do most of what you need. So the reality is, again, if you're technical and you're dancing with the event and you're doing all those things, then you really need all the controls. But the reality is on a regular show, you just are tapping the screen and going, I want to go to this, I want to go to that, I want to go to this. And so what we're going to constantly be doing is and I think it also kind of contains what can happen on a show. One of the things that I am, I'll be in a show, and we will see what we should have done. Like we'll see oh, we should have done that. And you'll hear me say next show, we're not going to change anything here. I am very resistant to changing things on site. So I'm once I get there and I'll make minor changes, but I will not restructure something on site almost ever, because the most expensive part of every event is failure, and I'm very failure resistant. So what will happen by creating an interface, it also limits this is what we're going to do today, and then we can come back and have a bunch of complaints, and there'll be new buttons on the next one. But it keeps us from making those making the changes on the fly, and sometimes you want to, and when you have a lot of history and a lot of experience and skill like Jeff does, having that open architecture is what you want. But get back to the other question I didn't quite fully answer before, is when you have a bunch of volunteers, you're at a church, you're at a nonprofit, you're at you have a marketing partner, whatever it is, you just want to give them what they need to do the show effectively and to creatively do that show and not have to hit a button that they can't recover from. I can't tell you, when people get started, the fade to black on an ATEM is death, because it turns everything off, and until you hit that button again, nothing's going to come back up, and you watch people just banging on the thing what's happening? It's all black. And so that's the kind of thing. We can just give you the buttons, only the buttons that you can do, and there's only so much damage you can do, and you have to talk to someone in engineering before you can do more damage. And so I think that there's a real value to that as we start to build that up. And that's what we have in this show. This show is a touch interface right now, and it's controlling all those things.
Next question.
Next question is from Kyle Hammond in Chicago, Illinois. What will this new show focus on, and will panel rotate based on the content?
Alex?
As we begin, the show is going to be just Q&A. We don't know where it's going to go. It's largely up to Grant. So Grant is going to make the decision about it's his show. He and I are talking about it, of course, but I think that we're going to. It's going to be generally. We're taking on some other things. So it's going to be a roundtable. We're not going to raise our hands. We're just going to talk. We'll see how much we talk over each other. It's going to be an invite only. So we'll reach out to people and have them invite. So people aren't just going to drop in, because we need to know how many people we have mostly. And so we're kind of working through that right now. And so we're kind of, we're going to try to kind of build a 6 or 8 person group that has different skill sets and different verticals, so that we can make that work. If there's panelists that are listening that want to be part of it, you just got to ping me, and we'll. But we want to kind of cover, making sure we've got some Mac people, got some PC people, got some audio people, got some video people. So that we can kind of have a discussion. But we're gonna, and right now we're not going to try to rotate any focuses. It's going to be 1 hour. It's going to be it's going to be like the first hour where we answer those questions. It's a slightly different format. And then it's going to evolve. This is, we turn a lot of these shows, we kind of turn on and start to figure out. And then this show was much different when it started than it is now. So we'll do the same thing with the new show.
Courtney?
Can you give us the date and time of this again for those of us with short-term memory loss?
Sure.
I know you told us this at the beginning.
Yeah, it's Monday at 6 p.m. This Monday, 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And it may not stay that day, but it's going to be this Monday at 6 p.m. And it, we'll see where we end up putting it. A lot of that has to do with, again, some scheduling and so on and so forth. But that's where we're going to start.
And to volunteer as a crash test dummy on the panel, consider yourself pinged.
Okay, good. Thanks. Okay, that sounds good. All right.
Next question.
Ryan Thomason in Houston, Texas asks, will there be a list of additions that we can follow along with and get feedback on what worked and what didn't through the add a couple of options?
Alex.
Yeah, what we'll do is, again, in 4 to 6 weeks, we're going to talk about the progression of what we added and didn't add. If you ask us on a Tuesday after we did the show on Monday, if you post a question, we'll answer it. So we'll say, hey, this worked, this didn't work, or this, we figured this out, or we're going to add, we want to add this for next week or whatever. So we'll give you some informal updates, but we'll formally update you every 4 to 8 weeks as we go through it until it, we'll slow that down when we are doing an HDR 5.1 4K stream out of Vector with all the tools that we have now and more. At that point, we might go, well, we're not going to progress much for a while. But until then, we're going to keep on giving you updates as we kind of move, as we update it, because we're going to keep on adding the tools that we need into it until it's fully formed.
Next question.
Next one's for me. Where does HDR come into play with this cloud-based platform? Is there a cost difference between hardware-based production and cloud for HDR workflow live streaming?
Alex?
Once it's working, it'll actually be less expensive to do it this way. I mean, one of the things, so there's some things that, for instance, that we're doing, even though the WebRTC, I mean, even though Zoom is delivering us 709, Rec 709, we have to upgrade that. And the problem is if you're a little dark, you get really dark in HDR. So we need to be able to color correct every person. So in hardware, we have FSHDRs that we're doing that with to do that conversion. But I think as we move forward, we're going to be able to use some of the color correction tools that are in the cloud to make some of that happen. So I think it's actually going to be easier as we go further along. The reason it comes into play is that, again, we want to, in addition to talking about all the different subjects, we're using this as a way to kind of push the industry forward and have a show. There's a lot of people that already ping me that say this is a show that when people say you can't do a show on the internet, or a live show, they go, well, we point to this one. And because of the investments that the panelists have made and because of the incredible dev team and the production teams, we have a show that most days looks pretty darn good compared to another, if you're looking at remote contribution panelists on most broadcasts, we're doing a little better than they are. And so what we're doing is we want to keep pushing that so that there's a version of it that people can see that this is the top end of what you can do. And we're trying to there's lots of pieces of that we're still working on to get there. But knowing that we are able to start delivering to you. And I also want to be able to talk about HDR and 5.1 or Atmos and have you be able to hear it. When we're talking about HDR, this is what HDR is and this is what SDR is. Right now, there's no way to really talk about that. And there's lots of places where I think it is going to look a lot better as, more and more of our devices are supporting seeing it. So we're throwing a very long ball to where the receiver is hopefully going to be. The receiver being all the devices. But we're trying to make sure that we can get there.
John Riedel?
I just wanted to say I'm obligated to say from a software standpoint in HDR production, really it's just 2 extra bits, guys. Yeah. But no, there is some processing. But there ultimately this doing this kind of content in software processing is there is a cost difference, and it should make it cheaper. And yes, Alex, you highlighted a lot of the things pre-switcher that need to happen. But it's a great form, and we have a lot of clients asking us and just prospective customers asking us about HDR.
And I think we're at next question.
Leo Mendel in Richmond, London asks, comparison with this and cloud mixers like StreamYard and Restream.
Jeff Keithley.
I'll keep it really simple on this. This is a full production suite. This is not just a 3-camera, 4-camera, 5-camera type of setup, but we could do 44 different inputs. It's got multiple graphics layers. It has MEs. This is a full production video suite. It is not just a platform just to switch through a few cameras and guests. It's more featured, considerably more featured.
Alex?
So, and really, it gets back to what I was talking about before, which is that with StreamYard and Restream, they have made it really easy to develop your show. So you can turn it on. I don't even think the Restream thing really works. But the StreamYard one, we'll stick with StreamYard for a moment. It's got a bunch of little templates, but you'll notice that a lot of the StreamYard stuff looks like each other and looks just okay. It's kind of like, it's just a little bland. And I don't see a lot of things that look particularly like great. It's just like, oh, it does it for you, but it doesn't do it well. I mean, it does it well enough, I guess, for a lot of stuff. But I think that StreamYard is a pretty basic solution for that kind of thing. And I think that, but because part of why they're doing that is because it is part of why they're doing it in StreamYard is because it's they want an average corporate person to be able to throw together a show and have it work reasonably well. What we're doing, saying we're not average folks. We want something better and bigger, and we want to be able to scale it to whatever we want. And then what we're going to do is simplify the interface so that someone with less skill set can sit there and just cut the show. So they'll be able to have the show be at the same level of complexity as StreamYard, or maybe less, than StreamYard, but it's doing a whole lot more. And that's what we're doing with MimoLove as well, by the way. On, when I'm doing the thing, it's a pretty complex set of things that I'm having to do, but I'm only hitting, I'm hitting the buttons, and so I'm able to run that show and talk at the same time. And I expect to be able to, I used to use a TriCaster every day or every time I did a show, where I sat there and cut the show and talked and did all the interviews and everything else. So it's something that we want to make it that simple so that you can do all the things you would do. You can have the same kind of same person with the same skill level run Vector, but it's just going to do a heck of a lot more. And it's going to look a lot better and have a lot more scalability from a creative and technical perspective than any of these other ones. They're fine for what they are, but if you really are trying to build a broadcast, you're not going to be. You can build something that's okay in StreamYard. You're never going to build anything that's great.
John Radel?
Yep. I just wanted to say that Alex hit it as well, but the software is a traditional, like, mix effects switcher infrastructure, but then it introduces all the different ideas that software processing and software switching presents, and that's like something as simple as just alpha channel, right? That sounds silly, but key and fill doesn't exist in software switching, and if someone tells you it does, run for the hills, because it shouldn't. But I think Alex hit it as well. Just, you want something to start off very, simply put, point, click, take, but then have the flexibility of growing into a bigger and bigger production. So that's where I would say that just over the course of the evolution and the product maturing, that's where Vector sits.
Courtney, quick.
If you're doing video playback, does that video need to be hosted in the cloud, or can you just send it in as part of one of the inputs from the outside world?
You can do both. I mean, the software itself has 4 media players that are fully functional, and you can upload those clips into the cloud and play them out in playlist, loop, or functions. But if you wanted to use something like NDI Bridge or whatnot, and you had some software or some infrastructure like a playout server on-prem, and you just wanted to get those up as just standalone inputs into the switcher, you could do it that way as well.
Next question.
Andy Kokendover in VR Florida asks, what type of signal chain troubleshooting tools for Viz Vector exist?
John Radel.
Yep, I just wanted to hit this and also toss to Jeff, but troubleshooting tools, there are NDI tools. They're the NDI analysis tool, but really when it comes to just NDI analysis or troubleshooting NDI as well, this is a part of the ecosystem. Is how many different vendors are out there, and do they have scopes and analysis and sniffers and troubleshooting. That is for the ecosystem to build, and NDI. That's what the NDI team promotes. And Jeff could give you probably some names directly of different products or different vendors that have these sort of tools for you.
Jeff?
We frequently use, we're a Sienna user heavily, have been for years. So Sienna Processing Engine is one of our ingest platforms and also our engineering glue that kind of holds everything together, and also NDI routers that we're using from them too. But we also use Nimble servers too. So we'll take in SRT into a Nimble server, flip it over into NDI for Vector to use. We try to, it just depends. It can be an island. Everything could be an island sometimes, but not always do you want an island. You may want multiple islands put together, working together with roads between them. And that's how we kind of look at it, and that's how we approach our cloud productions. It depends on the complexity. Sometimes we just need one instance or two instances up at most. Other times we may want to have several up that are just doing specific jobs for what makes it that makes the most sense. Sometimes, like in Nimble, we have reports that we can get back. Jonas has a great template that he uses too. You can see every SRT coming in, the connection patterns, and everything like that. In our Sienna processing engine, we have NDI analyzation tools that are in it. I can see exactly what the format is, what the bandwidth is being used. I can tell you what the resolution is and the stability behind it. So there's a lot of different tools out there. There are scopes inside, so just overall video levels and things like that inside Vector that you could use, and we use those extensively also. So it just really depends on how complex your signal flow is and how much redundancy you need into it also.
Next question.
Last question's from Guy Cochran in Seattle. What would be the cleanest way to get 4 Sony FR7 feeds from the ground on site to a cloud-based Viz system?
Jeff Keithley.
Okay, so Guy, you know me. I'm going to have like 4 different solutions, but Sienna has a Sienna Cloud, which is basically they've had the longest backhaul solution for bringing NDI across the public internet. SRT would probably be a simple way to do it now, a simpler way to do it now without any additional hardware cost in the play. Then NDI Bridge is definitely a way to do it too. It really kind of depends on the format that you want to bring up to the cloud too. So if you're bringing a full 12G signal, 4K signal up, each one of those may or may not have the best it just depends. There's a lot of depends. I might even use my live view from a remote situation. So it just depends on what's the best use for the scenario and what you have as the resources on that local site.
So thanks to everybody who participated today. Thank you, panelists, for showing up and adding your expertise as always. This is a new thing for us, and we are excited to have you all involved in what's going to happen with office hours as we move forward. Also, thank you to the producers, all of you who asked questions today. You're really what drives the show, and without you, this doesn't work. And of course, our amazing back-end crew, the people who are all over the world distributed, who are exploring this brand new world of cloud production with us every single day. Thank you for all of your efforts as well. Today, our statistics, the Telec traversal was 69,000 miles. That's how far we traveled to get the answers that you heard today. That's 111,000 kilometers, 547 million bananas for scale. See you tomorrow.
Thanks, John. Thanks for dropping in.
Absolutely, man. It's really good. It's really exciting to do this stuff with you guys.
Yeah, we're excited. so it should be good. Should be very good. All right, we'll see you guys later.
Adios.
See you guys.